You've probably seen this pop up in your feed. And if you haven't, you've definitely seen this. That's right, in 1991, Mazda created a competitor to the Honda Moto Compo. They called it the Suitcase Car. Now, I've wanted one for some time, but you can't buy one. Only 3 promotional models were ever created. One for Japan, one for Europe, and one for the US. Sadly, the Japanese and European models were destroyed, leaving only the US model, but that one's not for sale. And if it was, it would probably bankrupt me. So I did what any rational person would do, and I built my own. It's 1991. Mazda had just won the 24 Hours of Le Mans with their legendary 787B, and the newly released Miata was more popular than anyone ever imagined it would be. Mazda was riding high and began hosting Fantasy Yard, an internal design competition where engineers created innovative mobility solutions. Out of this charmingly named event popped one concept that stole the show: the Suitcase Car. This portable go-kart was created by 7 members of Mazda's manual transmission R&D team, costing about $5,000 to build. Weighing in at 71 pounds, its chassis featured a square steel tube frame, a solid rear axle, and a front fork from a recycled pit bike. Powered by a 33.6cc 2-stroke Komatsu engine, the Suitcase Car had a top speed around 30 km per hour. This vehicle's intriguing bodywork is merely a large Samsonite suitcase, so intriguing that it was featured on Oprah.
A Mazda scientist designed this suitcase car. See that? That's it unfolds out into a suitcase. You can drive the thing.
This is really cool.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
These are the unbelievable artifacts of tomorrow.
And Ohana Road.
On the rise, this is one piece of luggage you'll want to keep an eye on. After all, with its built-in handy carrying case, the Suitcase Car is liable to disappear.
Sadly, after its promotional run, the Mazda Suitcase Car fell from the spotlight and was forgotten. Until now.
This doesn't look like a car.
Not yet.
You may have noticed that we're missing a drivetrain. If only there was something we could rob a little engine from.
So, there's been a bit of a development. I've changed the suitcase we're using for the project. This is the Samsonite Rexton, and this was sent to us by the Samsonite rep of North America, and he told us that this is the newest version of the suitcase that Mazda would have used in the early 90s to create the Suitcase Car, effectively being an upgrade. Very exciting. And now I just have to make a chassis in it. Since the Suitcase Car is so old and so niche, there's very little information left on the internet about how it actually works. Most of the old videos are nothing more than corrupt links, but thankfully, we were able to get in touch with the caretaker of the only remaining Suitcase Car in the world, Brad. He gave us the rundown of how the original Suitcase Car worked so we could make a truly accurate replica.
Yo, here it is. Come down here. You see there's these posts. You can't do it right now because there's tension on it, but basically you can slide it all the way up, but then you can slide it all the way back, and it runs through little holes in the back of the suitcase. It just goes into the square tubing. It's kind of what holds it all in. There is a way to lock these in, I can't remember, but they don't come undone.
I started by grinding the suitcase frame to a flat surface to mount the internal chassis to. Next, we start the rear frame. An aluminum flat is the starting point. Square tube is measured and cut to form the main structure, which will be especially important for the sliding rails I'd be integrating later. Had to also make sure the engine would still fit. We have the rear chassis mocked up with our lovely C-clamps, and now it's time to break out the ARCCAPTAIN setup so we can weld this whole thing together. I'm using the TIG 200P AC/DC welder. This was my first time TIG welding aluminum, so it was a bit of a learning curve, but the ARCCAPTAIN was quite intuitive, and I managed to stick metal together. Next, I punched some holes for the pillow block bearings I'd be using to affix the axle, drilled some holes in the bodywork, and admired the maybe 73% accuracy of my hole placement. Now it was time to mount the beast of an engine. I started by grinding the suitcase to accommodate the pull cable housing, then I welded the engine mount. So I've made a mistake. I was just getting the hang of TIG welding. Yeah, I have grossly misjudged the spacing of the holes on the bottom of the motor, and they don't fit on this, so now I've got to do something to fix that. Measure twice, cut once. Words I don't live by. And by something, I meant to cut most of my new part off, and I built a mounting plate instead. Using the pocket bike frame as a template, I cut a plate out of 1/4-inch aluminum and welded it to the existing frame. Engine mounted. It's time to connect the drivetrain. I drilled holes in a Razor E300 sprocket to mount to this go-kart axle hub. Now that we have the motor mocked up in the chassis, it's now time to weld the sprocket onto the axle. And to do that, I'm swapping from the TIG 200 to the MIG 205 MP, because this is something I'm a bit more familiar with. I perma-boogered the sprocket hub to the axle, and the drivetrain was complete. So now I'm going to start to build the front frame. Similar to the rear, I TIGged a square tube frame to some mounting flats. So we've got a front frame, and what I'm working on now is how to connect the front and the rear so that the suitcase doesn't fold like a clamshell while you're driving. The answer is these two sliding bolts that I've created with little threaded knobs there. The idea is that the bolts live inside the front frame like this, and then when I want to open up the suitcase and join the two frames, I slide the bolts forward, effectively connecting the two frames as one, and these knobs are threaded so I can tighten it down in place and it doesn't fall apart. To make this work, I drilled some end holes for the slider channels. Then I cut a slot between the holes for the knobs to ride in. Oh yeah, bolt action, baby. To allow the bolts to slide, I used a Dremel to create cutouts in the suitcase. This took so much longer than I expected, and I couldn't feel my fingers afterwards. But after all that grinding, it was worth it. Now that I've got the frame done for the suitcase, it's time to give it some wheels. Now for the rear, that's pretty straightforward. We'll get to that soon, but for the front, it's a little more complicated. So to make things a little easier for myself, I've acquired this, a Razor E100 electric scooter. And these are all over Marketplace for 20 or 30 bucks. They're pretty much worthless, but I don't want it for its motor or its batteries or anything like that. I want it for this wheel and this brake, and it should be perfect for the suitcase car. I chopped the front fork off the E100, mocked it up, and welded a mount for it, which included these really cool quick release latches. So I'm in a bit of a predicament. I've created this really cool quick release system so that the front wheel can actually fold into the frame, click into place nice and easy. The problem is that they're not as strong as advertised. If I just do that, they unlatch. So I don't think that's gonna work for driving around in a suitcase, and the front wheel folds into itself and then bad things happen. I have a new plan. I'm gonna take these little aluminum blocks, scraps I had left over, and I'm gonna weld them to the frame right here. And as you can see, if I weld them right there, boom. And what I'll do is that each of these little blocks will have a nutsert. And it'll be a little less quick release cool, but a lot more functional. With the front fork sorted, I welded the axle stubs to the wheels. Here's what we got. The engine is mounted. The new carburetor is put on. A chain guard is there so I don't lose my leg hair. This is the seat. It's a work in progress. And there's a fuel tank that will be zip tied to that beautiful piece of aluminum right there like so. I've also welded up an exhaust, so that little pipe is our itty bitty cute exhaust. You can kind of see the muffler down there. And we got our front fork as well with a pretty non-functional brake and a working throttle. And wheels. The suitcase car does run, but it has a fatal problem. It doesn't turn, as I'll now demonstrate. My plan is a little strange, a little crazy, and it's kind of like a diff, but not really. It's a really shit diff. So under here, we can see the axle, and usually this is kind of where a diff would go, but obviously we can't really have a proper diff. So my plan is to make the suitcase car one-wheel drive. And the way I'm going to do that is by using these spare pillow block bearings that I have lying around. I'm going to chop the ears off of the blocks so that it's just a round circle. I'm going to weld the two blocks together, and that way there's a bearing on one side and a bearing on the other side, and that will sit in the middle of the axle just like that, and allow this side of the axle and this side of the axle to spin at different speeds, even though they're connected as one complicated fix to kind of a dumb problem. Yippee. With turning abilities unlocked, I shifted my focus to the final piece of the puzzle, the seat. I started with a piece of generational plywood and rounded the corners. Screwed in some TPU locating pegs that I designed, cut out a piece of foam, the Japanese way, of course, beveled the edges, glued the foam to the plywood, wrapped it all in some fluffy goodness that really didn't do anything, and finished the upholstery with a vintage rice bag. As you can see, the seat is very quick to install, and with that, the suitcase car was complete. Okay, the suitcase car is done, and now it's time to test it out and show you how everything works. Starting with portability. Fits in the back of a Jag, should fit in most cars, and it's really light and easy to get out. Just like a normal suitcase, undo the latches and open up your trusty steed, followed by these really easily stored wheels and a beautifully upholstered seat. Slip the locating pegs into the holes, and now we can work on the frame. Now under here, there's some sliding pins. Undo the sliding pin, slide it into place on both sides, and what that does is it joins the two halves of the suitcase car and makes this effectively one frame. Then we take our handlebar out and rest it on the side, take off our access panel, store it under the seat for ease of use later. Now we're working on the front fork. And now we can attach the handlebars. Now we move to the back of the suitcase car and start to install the wheels. And one more on the other side. And then it should just start. Oh, last but not least, foot pegs. Should we do a top speed run?
Top speed run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the mix? No idea. Just make it blue. I think it's too blue. Top speed run. 33 kilometers per hour is faster than the original suitcase car, and I know that this one has more in it. I just got scared.
This thing's so scary.
Now, I have to catch my flight, but before I go, I gotta make sure that the airlines are gonna approve of this. Let's see how much it weighs. 56.8 pounds. That's actually not that bad. It's only, what, 6 pounds over the limit? Close enough. Oh, it sure doesn't feel like 50 pounds. Well, there you have it. This is our version of the Mazda Suitcase Car. Now we have to address the elephant in the room. This was a flawed idea from the start. And there's really no practical use case for it other than looking cool. Sure, it's a bit more portable than a go-kart, but that's about it.